What's up, IYCA community? I got your messages, and you guys apparently filled out the question forms where you wanted me to answer some of your questions, and here it is. This is our first edition of this Q&A session. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through, there were a ton of questions, some of them really specific, some of them a little bit more general. I'm going to go through and I'm going to answer them. So hopefully this gives you some answers to your questions. If you still want to email me, you can obviously always email me at jim@iyca.org, or you can respond on this video, or hit us up on Facebook or Instagram, and we'll get back to you to answer all of your questions related to training. All these questions really got me thinking. We are about to launch a new edition of or a new update to the high school strength and conditioning specialist course and certification, and there were a ton of questions about high school strength and conditioning. I'm gonna still answer these questions, but many of them are answered in this new in the textbooks and in the new updates. So I just decided, like, we're gonna do a like 40% off sale on this relaunch, so that you can get all this new information. If you already have the high school strength and conditioning the high school strength and conditioning specialist certification, it's all free to you. So you'll be able to log in soon and get all these new updates completely free. And that's going to also include the Olympic lifting instructor course, plus some new video modules, a ton of new exercise videos. There's a lot of new, really awesome stuff in there. So it's all free if you already bought it. So don't think you have to buy anything new. If you haven't purchased the HSSCS yet, then now's the time. Just look for an email that'll be coming out about that, because this just happened. I just kind of figuring out that this is a perfect time with all these questions. So we're going to get our team on that. So it's not ready yet, but you'll get an email soon to get that 40% off. All right, let's get into these questions. So the first one is, I am an elementary school phys ed teacher. I do fitness testing every quarter of the year, and I've heard the debate over the value and concerns over sit-ups. I use sit-ups as a fitness test for 2, maybe 3 quarters of the year, because they're very reliable and easy to administer. I know that there are alternatives, but they'd be harder and more time consuming to administer. So my question is whether you have a concern for 2nd through 5th graders doing sit-ups as a test. It's 45 seconds. I should also add that I do a wide variety of other core exercises for the 3 months before having them do the sit-ups. I think it's totally fine. It like you said, it's a very reliable and easy to administer test. It gives you baselines, it gives you numbers. Is it the perfect test? No, but you already knew that. If you did sit-ups every single day, I might say, I don't know, that might not be the best use of your time, and it could pose a little bit of danger. But if you're doing sit-ups for 45 seconds 3 times a year, or putting them in once in a while, I think you're going to be totally fine, and it's actually good way to measure some progress. I know that my kids going through elementary school loved that. They loved that test. They kind of got excited about it. So it's also, for a lot of kids, it's something fun for them to do. I'd keep doing it. The next one, where can I find a sample strength template for a 14 to 15-year-old 2-sport athlete? He's a football O-line, D-line, and track and fields throws for shot and discus. I've seen samples on the website. What would you recommend? All right, on the website, on the IYCA.org website, go to the heading that says programs, and there is an advanced strength training template. That is perfect for this person. It gives you power, it gives you strength, it balances it all out. There are alternatives for different days. That would be the perfect one. Pretty much that page has programs for all sorts of different things. In some of our courses, there are other sample templates. So if you have say the high school strength and conditioning coach certification, there's lots of different sample workouts in there. If you have the speed and agility certification, there's tons of sample workouts in there for speed and agility. So if you have one of those, go back maybe and check out some of the templates that are in there. If you don't, and you're looking for it, it looks like this might be maybe your son, and you don't want to go through a whole certification. Get one of those programs. It comes delivered on Train Heroic, so you'll download the free Train Heroic app in the App Store. You will be sent a code that will give you access to it, and then boom, you follow it along. I believe you have access to that for a full year. You can print it out too and write it down if you want, do whatever you need to do with it, but that's probably going to be your best bet. That's what I would suggest. Next one, your thoughts on kinesio taping and cupping. I don't really have a lot of thoughts on kinesio taping and cupping. I have never seen anything that says they are bad. So I don't think that there's a danger to them, other than they might be expensive. They might have people rely on them. You might not be able to find it all the time, find somebody to do it all the time. I don't know if it's going to work on everybody. There seems to be, certain people that are better at the taping. It also seems to be that cupping works better on certain people, and other people don't feel anything or very little. So if you are experienced in it, in either of those things, and you have gotten results, I know people that have felt a difference from the kinesio taping. I know people that have said it didn't do anything for them. Same with the cupping. If you know how to do it and you like doing it, and you can convince people that it's helping them, and you're actually seeing results from it with certain people, then go ahead and do it. I think it's a very individual thing. I'm not probably the world's foremost expert on either of those, though. I just don't do a whole lot of it. All right. The information, resources, tools, etc. available everywhere is overwhelming. I'd love to be able to condense, qualify, and really develop a blueprint or a map for high school athletes with whom I work with. I'd also like to learn more about specific programming for high school female athletes, which is my target population. I believe I've gotten lost with the abundance of training literature programs out there. And she goes on, Marisol goes on to say, I'm even willing to travel to a presentation, workshop, certification, or anything that would address those needs. So the high school strength and conditioning coach specialist certification course actually addresses almost all of that in there. The two textbooks, Foundations of High School Strength and Conditioning and the Principles of Athletic Strength and Conditioning, have sections in there that address a lot of these things, pretty much everything. The programming section by Mark Naylor in the Principles book is amazing, laid out wonderfully. Mark was a strength coach at the University of Michigan and is now at the head strength coach at Eastern Kentucky, and man, he did a great job laying out how to program for athletes. Kristen Schumann, she's a PhD. She's been a strength coach. Did a whole section on female athletes. Since you asked about female athletes, I would say that especially you mentioned specifically high school female athletes. Most high school female athletes have not done a tremendous amount of strength training, so oftentimes they're very weak, which creates a lot of problems for them generating power. They are also not real. This is a generalized statement. So some girls are super explosive. A lot of girls are not as explosive, but they have oftentimes pretty high endurance, and they can be very good technically with a lot of sports skills. All of that kind of combines to them being able to do stuff and do it for a long period of time that they kind of aren't able to control because they're not strong enough and haven't worked explosively enough, especially for decelerating type forces. So they're able to go, but as they get tired, their strength diminishes even more so, and then they can kind of set themselves up for problems. I see a lot of distance runners and soccer players who don't have a lot of rotational ability, which is going to have a huge negative impact on their ability to twist and turn, to use their hips appropriately, to run fast. So that may be something for you to look at and evaluate. And then I also see a lot of female athletes playing higher than male athletes, meaning they're not getting as much of a knee bend. And when they do bend their knees, they typically push their knees forward, so it's all quad, and they're not getting as much hip activation. So their glutes and hamstrings aren't activated as much because they're just not engaging them. So I would really work on things like athletic posture, like how they're performing, like getting their butt back, their hips back, and engaged. I would work on landing mechanics. I would do explosive exercises with them, and then I would really try to get them to understand that they have different gears. It shouldn't just be one gear all the time. They should be able to jog and then sprint and turn it on. They should be able to jump and cut and twist and turn as fast as they can without it just being kind of one constant speed. So that's what I see a lot of. So I would work on things that are very similar to what the boys are working on, since you're working with a lot of high school athletes. And I would get them to understand, so get them to buy in, teach them why you're doing that training, so that they understand, the differences in when they're supposed to sprint, when they're supposed to decelerate or accelerate or jog or jump and twist and turn, and how that all should feel. Hopefully that helps a little bit, but there's a lot more in the HSSCS materials. All right, next one. I'm new to high school strength and conditioning. Most high school kids I work with, this is Robin. This is a great question. Most high school kids I work with are receptive to form corrections, and some are extremely appreciative. How best to deal with the ones who are annoyed with form corrections, to the point I had one tell me to stop watching her workout? Yeah. Welcome to working with kids. You're not going to get every single kid to want your input on everything. I think the best way to handle that, though, is to develop relationships with these athletes before you're correcting them too much and turning them off. They need to know that you care and why you're doing that. So I don't know how you're approaching it. It sounds like a lot of the athletes are very receptive to your feedback. This person, you may need to approach her slightly differently. You may want to come at it with the care attitude, like, hey, I don't want you to get hurt, so I really want you to be able to do this correctly. You may switch exercises. You may just, if there's something that she's doing that she just can't do, you may want to switch it and explain to her that you're changing it because you really care about her and you don't want to see her get hurt. Or you could say, I want to see you perform optimally, and depending on this person, I don't know the exact situation, but you could say something like, I know you're really frustrated with this. I don't want you to be frustrated. You're working your butt off. I just want to make sure you're safe, and I can see a lot of potential in you, and I want you to get everything out of yourself that you possibly can. So that's why I'm here. I'm not trying to annoy you. I just want to keep you safe, and I want to keep you performing optimally. And then maybe back off a little bit, and then just give her some positives. So anything that you see her doing correctly, make sure you say it and really cheer her on. Even if she's messing something else up, tell her what she's doing correctly. For an example, let's say she's doing the squat and she's bending her back a lot, but she's able to keep her heels on the ground. Tell her like, you're doing awesome keeping your heels on the ground, and your knees are, coming forward just slightly, which is exactly where you want them. Or she's working really hard. I see you working your butt off, or I see you spotting your partner or doing this. Point out everything that she's doing correctly, so that she doesn't see you as basically like nagging at her about everything she's doing wrong. You want to have some positives to that also. Sometimes you just catch somebody on the wrong day, and it doesn't go very well. Other times, it's going to be like that all the time. You can also correct whoever she's working out with, and praise them as well, so that she starts to see you as a positive influence, not always just pointing out negatives. I'm not saying that that's what you do. I don't know. I don't know all the background, but that would be something that you could try. All right. I'd like to see more educational information on training for energy demands in sports like soccer, lacrosse, volleyball, etc. There's still a lot of youth and high school coaches that push their kids to run 3 miles a day, or push them into a boot camp or CrossFit style workout because they're misinformed that sweat and soreness get their athletes into shape. This shows a serious lack of understanding, over and over again, and I would like to see more on that. Amen. I would like to see that also. That's from John. I totally agree with you. Again, there's lots of content on the IYCA.org website about this. I know that there have been several metabolic conditioning and energy system specific articles in the free content area. I would go back. I think Joe Powell wrote one. Phil Houston wrote a series about this. I did something on it a while back, titled, I think, like, Are We Addicted to Fatigue? That was talking exactly about that people think that you have to just blow them out and do a boot camp or CrossFit type workout and be puking in a bucket. Definitely read those, and you can use those to educate your audience. I have been doing a series of letters to parents. I'm not sure if you've seen that or not, but that's also in the free content area. And you know what? That is a great topic for me to address. So maybe I will address that topic to parents, because sometimes parents are the ones driving this kind of attitude. So that's a great idea, John. I'm going to write something about it. In the meantime, go ahead and get that free information that's already in there. And I think that the article that I wrote, the Addicted to Fatigue article, I think you might want to use that to educate some of your people as well. But yeah, we do still see that. Here's another one. Thank you for answering my questions. I have 3 young athletes, ages 13, 8, and 4. 13-year-old plays hockey and struggles with his knee bend and acceleration on the ice. Yeah. I tell him to load and explode, but he doesn't get enough power out of his initial strides. Both my younger sons run on their heels, have little to no forward lean, and seem to swing their legs when they run. Do you have any advice that can help my boys? I see this kind of stuff all the time. You are definitely not alone. A lot of this is strength and power related, and a lot of it is mechanics based. For skating and for them running on their heels, at a certain point, they're going to need some instruction. Now, for your 4 and 8-year-old, the instruction is going to be very minimal. Get them running fast. Get them motivated to run as fast as they can, and then start giving them different ways that they could move their body. So you could maybe time them. Kids love getting timed on things, and you could time them running, to a tree and back. Let them run on their heels, with their legs kind of swinging rather than bringing their knees up and striking the ground through the ball of their foot. Just let them run the way they're running, and then maybe give them something to think about. Stay on the balls of your feet and teach them where that is. Your 4-year-old's probably not going to really care too much about that. Maybe ask them to get their knees up, have them try it again, and show them that, like, hey, that was a lot faster. Maybe try it again, and get them to understand that, oh, there are ways of doing this that may be more efficient and more effective. Your 13-year-old that's skating, he's I think you said he was a boy. Maybe it's a girl. Maybe you didn't really explain, or specify. That you're going to need some instruction. He or she is at the age that they will probably want some instruction, and so a good skating instructor is going to really help that a lot. Unfortunately, changing the way athletes run or skate takes a while. They've been doing things the way they are doing them for a while, and their nervous system is accustomed to doing things in that manner. It's what feels natural now. It may not be right, it may not be optimal, but it feels natural to them. It's going to take a couple weeks of consistent practice to break some of those habits, and then to and then to kind of get them to know what to do properly. After that, it's going to take another like 6 to 8 weeks of consistent practice. Now I'm talking, multiple times a week without doing it improperly a lot in between. It's going to take that consistent practice to get it so ingrained in their nervous system that they no longer have to really use a lot of thought to make it happen. That's when you're going to notice a difference out on the ice or out running if you're working on running mechanics. It takes time, and as a parent, you can only harp on them so much. That's why I would encourage you maybe to find a skating instructor. At our training center, I have Matt Cady, who is an amazing skating instructor who uses a hockey treadmill to work on mechanics and power a lot, and it makes a huge difference in kids. And a lot of parents will say, "I've been telling them the same thing, you won't do it." Well, when you can give them instruction in the middle of their run or their skate because you're using a different device and they can see themselves in the mirror and they have a different voice in their head, it can change things a lot. So those things can be a little bit tricky, but I would encourage you to go out and get some other help on that. We have a couple more left. I have a daughter playing, she's middle on a volleyball team. She gets a lot of playing time. I feel like she could improve her quickness and jump a little bit higher. What do you think you could do about this? Oh yeah. I mean, most volleyball players can. If they could jump higher and move quicker, that'd be amazing. We do have a vertical jump program on the program section. That would be the perfect thing for her to start. That's an easy one. Go to the program section on IYCA.org, grab that. It's on the Train Heroic like I answered earlier, and get that. That was from Vincent. This is from Jim. Just curious where you learned your speed and agility techniques from, as there seems to be far less information out there compared to other areas of training. You are right, Jim, and that is why back in, I believe it was 2005, I wrote my first book, Speed and Agility Revolution, because there really wasn't anything out there that was in a condensed format, an easy to read and follow format on how to teach mechanics, whether that was sprinting, acceleration, deceleration, change of direction, sport-specific movements. There wasn't really anything out there, so I thought, well, this is going to fill a huge gap. That information is what ended up being the Certified Speed and Agility Specialist certification through the IYCA. A lot of that information is what we used. I got my information from a lot of different sources. Somebody that I got a lot from was a man named John Frappier, who started a system years and years ago, but he got his information from spending a lot of time over in the former Soviet Union working with a lot of different coaches on mechanics, on plyometrics, on power development techniques, on speed development techniques. He brought all those back, and he and a researcher named Steve Swanson did a ton of biomechanics research on speed work and agility and acceleration. I learned a lot from them. I used to do, or not used to, back when I was in grad school, there was a ton of research from some Americans, but a lot of Scandinavian countries, a lot of Eastern European countries. A lot of that research was coming out on power and speed and even some agility work. I used to spend so much time in medical library researching this stuff. So a lot of that, a lot of my information came from all the research studies. Paavo Komi wrote a book years ago about power development. An awesome coach named Walt Reynolds, another awesome coach named Glenn Terry. I had the honor of getting to spend a lot of time with to learn about speed development and plyometrics. And then a lot of other sport coaches that I would get to work with, and watching and working with athletes at elite levels and at youth levels to figure out how athletes move and what the best and most optimal way that coaches were trying to get them to move was going to be. So I put a lot of that together, a lot of that information. I mean, it was years and years of learning from all these people and watching just thousands of athletes and working with them to figure out like what system was going to work. Now, my first book, did I change some things in it? Yes, I hope so. If I was doing the same exact things in 2005 that I'm doing today, then maybe I'm not evolving. But a lot of the stuff is it's scientifically backed. It's researched. It works. So we don't have to change too much. But that's where I got a lot of my information. All right, my biggest challenge, especially with my 16-year-old son, is finding time during the school year for him to be able to consistently lift weights, properly stretch, do speed and agility training, core, baseball-specific training, and homework. During the school year and the baseball off season, is there any type of speed program that you'd recommend for young athletes where they possibly speed train 4 to 5 days per week, but only for 10 to 15 minutes per session? He's a motivated kid, but the schedule makes it impossible. Oh my gosh, this is an awesome question because this happens all the time. And yes, there are simple, short speed programs that you can do that you don't have to spend hours and hours on a speed and agility program, especially during the season. A little bit is way better than nothing. Some of those are actually all of those are in the speed and agility certification. Many of them are there's a speed program in the programs section of the IYCA.org site. I would grab those, and you can then tweak them to make it only 10 to 15 minutes at a time. It is totally acceptable to do shortened speed programs or power programs or lifting programs during the season. So I would definitely encourage you to do different versions when he's super busy, but to get it in consistently. All right, we got, I think, two more questions. I don't really want to do power cleans at my high school, but some of the coaches really want to. I've read some of your thoughts on this, but still don't know what to do because 2 of them won't use me if I don't include them. What are your thoughts? That's a tough one. I've had that situation too, and you know what? I think that you should learn how to do the Olympic lifts really, really well and start teaching them, but you don't have to worry about teaching or don't have to worry about using heavy weights. Worry about technique, especially with young high school athletes. Nobody cares how much weight they can lift when they're in high school unless they're an Olympic lifter. It's all about technique, bar speed, and gradually getting better at these lifts. Most college coaches that I talk to have told me I would rather high school coaches not do a ton of Olympic lifting and just let us teach them when they get there, unless you're really good at it. So this was one of those questions that made me want to give this discount on the high school strength coach certification, because we just included the entire Olympic lifting instructor course in the high school certification. So I would get that. I would learn how to do it. I would start doing versions. Start with a high pull. Talk to your coaches that you're going to slowly implement these and just gradually build into them. Last one. The bar seems to hurt a lot of young kids' shoulders when they squat. Any suggestions? Also, I only have 3 racks and I get 20 kids working out. How should I set things up? Man, I've had these same problems. The bar hurting their back, there's a couple of reasons for that. First, you've got to get them to squeeze those shoulder blades back and maybe up a little bit if they don't have much trap muscle. The thicker athletes, they have a little bit more meat on them and it's a little more comfortable. Real thin athletes, sometimes it's on their bone and it doesn't feel good and it shouldn't be there. So if athletes feel that the bar is on their bone, that's not where it's supposed to be. It's going to be uncomfortable, but it shouldn't be super, super painful. And if it is, it's probably not in the right place. So you're going to want to readjust where they're putting the bar when they're squatting. So definitely make adjustments on that. Only 3 racks and getting 20 kids in there. That is another thing that we put into the new HSSCS materials is a couple of modules on group organization. If I were you with that many kids, I would try to get half of them on the racks and half of them doing something else. So maybe you have trap bars, so you could do bench press on the racks, trap bars on the other side, superset each one of them with a different exercise. Once they're done, they're going to flip-flop. Now you can have 10 kids in the racks, 10 kids not in the racks. They'll flip-flop, and then you can keep flip-flopping the groups so that you don't have everybody standing in line waiting for one exercise. Supersetting exercises is a great way to keep athletes moving. You could even do a giant set with maybe 3 exercises. So you could do bench press, chin-ups and maybe a corrective exercise or a mobility exercise or a core exercise to keep them moving so that people aren't just standing waiting in line for those racks. All right, that was a lot of questions. Look for that email for the new version of the high school strength coach certification that I think is gonna, it just flowed right into all this. And we'll do this again. Sorry that this got a little bit long, but there were a lot of questions and I wanted to make sure we got to all of them.